As always, Mr. Rajavi, it's wonderful to be with you. And of course, it's worth the whole trip to simply see the display room of all of the pictures, all of the demonstrations. And I'm hoping that after today, I'll be able to get a map of all of the places that you have on the wall where demonstrations and other things broke out. Because when you look at that map and you see how many different cities had something going on, it makes it very clear. I also want to point out that when you have Senator Torricelli and me both here, this is a bipartisan commitment with a Democrat and a Republican. In Washington, you don't often get that right now. But we do. This is one of the topics increasingly bringing people together, I believe. Now, I may have been wrong about one aspect, and I say this recognizing that so many of you know so much more than I do about what's going on in Iran. But in a funny way, the Obama strategy of turning the money over to the dictatorship may have backfired because people believed they were going to get the money. And there was a heightened sense that maybe things will get better. And I don't think it occurred to them that the money was going to be diverted to corruption, and the money was going to be diverted to Syria, and to Yemen, to South Lebanon. And all of a sudden, I think the level of anger was greater because this hope had been built up that things were going to somehow get better. But the challenge for the dictatorship is that things can't get better. The level of corruption it now takes to maintain the Revolutionary Guard means that more and more and more money will be diverted from normal people to the forces of oppression. And as they grow more corrupt, they grow more greedy. And so I think you see this tension that's building between the forces of oppression, who are only sustained with lots of money, and the average Iranian who doesn't have access to either the power or the money. What you're doing, each of you, by being here today, what you do at that huge annual meeting, which is, frankly, for me, was a turning point when I looked out and saw so many thousand people from all over the world. And it was obvious that something big is happening. Now, for any of my friends who are still not quite convinced that the MEK is a real force, I suggested to them that when the Iranian dictatorship asked the president of France to restrict one person who's sitting here, and the president of France said no, France is not. By the way, the great irony, of course, is France is where Khomeini was in exile from the Shah, and the cassettes from Khomeini came from Paris. So now here is the dictatorship begging that the next generation of change, but I tell my friends in the United States, I don't believe that the dictatorship singled out Mrs. Rajavi just as an exercise. I believe the level of fear that is growing for a very practical reason. You have survived. You have endured. You have continued with your mission. And they haven't been able to stop you. And the morale loss, the prestige loss that they suffered was very real. I mean, it's very hard right now for any person open to facts to suggest that the current dictatorship is a legitimate government. It is clearly sustained only by fear, by torture. And I must say to the two young people who spoke, it's very humbling to realize what you have endured because of your belief in freedom for Iran. And so I'm grateful for your witness here today.